that we use here, Skype. I was like
Right.
looking around, what the hell. So listen, I got you want to get all prepped and everything, but I think you look great. You look great. And I'm going to hit you with a surprise topic. Um,
Okay.
and
Let's
and
do it.
listen, this one's an easy one for you. So
That's
uh,
exciting. Always surprises are good.
today, I thought we'd talk a little bit. Let me just get my prop over here. Okay. Topic is coffee and tea. Um, and you know, I started to make a coffee, or in this case, a tea. Actually, I was getting ready to join the call here, and then I remembered kind of our whole history of different things around tea, and I wanted to start off by saying each, like, are you a tea person or a coffee person? And maybe some people could be both or whatever, right? But I think there's like this huge thing in the world
True.
about like tea drinking and coffee drinking. And starting off, it's kind of like you tend to be one or the other. You know what I mean? You either are fanatical about your coffee,
Right.
or you're one of those people that drinks tea. You got six kinds of tea. You order it from some special place. It comes in the right kind of can. It has the right texture of the bag. It's got to have the silky bag. I don't like those other Lipton tea bags. You can, God, if you're a real tea drinker, Lipton's off the table, right? I mean,
Right.
that was the funny one that I had been following that Chinatown tea and bragging about it for about 9 years. Oh, I know the special place for tea. That one day when I went in there and I was like, I got up the nerve to finally ask after all these years.
Ah,
Your tea is so special. I've been telling people all over. I have this really unique place that I found here in Chinatown. And then she looked up and goes, "Oh yes, you mean the Lipton?" And I was like, "Yes. Where did you find that brand?" I was like,
it's amazing. I never
that's
heard of that brand.
interesting. Let me write that down. Is that LIP? I wonder if the Lipton has something the word with lip, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, what's
But,
with that?
but
Pucker up your lip.
and speaking of that though, like, so the
The Lipton.
Chinese, it's just, the Chinese tend to be more tea people.
Right.
And they got all these special ceremonies. Everyone gets very egotistical about their thing. Like if you go to Italy and you drink coffee in the wrong cup at the wrong angle, you're sitting at
Right.
the table, you have it before or after the meal, not you put sugar or milk, God forbid you put milk in, you might be deported from the country. You know, it's like people get very serious about this stuff. You know,
True.
uh, and one thing I was trying to figure out is like, are you know, do people kind of behave the same around the world? And one thing I verified for sure is, I was on this really cool trip in Indonesia, and one of the things that I heard about we should really do is got to go to a coffee plantation. Indonesian coffee. It's one of the famous types of things. Went to this coffee plant, had a special tour arranged, whatever it is, and then I discovered that. Yes, it is the same anywhere in the world. They know how to take advantage of tourists. That they got down. It's the same everywhere. We're like, oh, you try our special coffee plantation. It's like $27 for taste. And then I walked out of the thing. I spent about $100, and I got home. I was like, wait a minute. I think that was like, two or three, things to two or three like cups of coffee in this thing, and that was $100. So, and it was Indonesian, and I should have read the fine print. I think they bought it in China, at the gift shop.
But the experience, you had the
But
experience.
but literally, I mean, so, um, you know, and if people use it in very different ways. And one thing I love about coffee in particular, it's probably, by the way, tea and coffee the same thing. There's entire schools of thought about how healthy it is or how unhealthy it is. Like for years people tell me, "Oh, you drink coffee, you're an addict. You can't live one night without coffee. You get bad. I'll get bad headaches. I get the jitters. I get sick if I don't drink the coffee. And then
Mhm.
then the week later you read an article like the more coffee you drink, the longer you live, the less cancer you get, the healthier you be. Same thing with tea, right? Like and by the way, tea. What do you think? I think tea more so than coffee. Uh, has been successful kind of on a competitive basis, penetrating into the kind of supermarket and deli, and I mean, coffee's everywhere, but in the bottled version, there's like way more bottled iced tea than there are like kind of coffee drinks that you get out of a pre-made, like
That's true.
Pepsi, or you know what I mean? Like the tea is everywhere. Coffee, but so maybe that tells us that's a statistical anomaly there, and there should be more coffee drinks available in fountain, things at the deli, refrigerators, whatever. I mean, it's loaded up. There's 100 kinds of tea. By the way, from the sugary, Arnold Palmer's mixed with lemonade, the thing, whatever it is, all the way over to like this ginseng green tea from the heavens, and with a light hint of honey. Like you get like you're supposed to drink that and be healthier. I mean, I look in the back, it has same 23 grams of sugar or whatever. So
So I mean, but and underlying it all is caffeine.
Yes, it is. And then, by the way, I just had to add this one element to the story. Like I found out, and it was only by sort of experimental for me. So the caffeine is the point of drinking it for, in many ways. Although for me, it's just that it's either a warm drink or nice ice cold. I love like at the right temperature, whether it's hot or cold, the right season. If they took the caffeine out, like it would be fine for me. But it's the flavor, and it's a unique thing, right? But I think people think about this. They love the coffee so much that they had to come out with a version where they use some method to extract the caffeine, and they get this quote decaf, right? Decaf, by the way, is not uncaf. It's not no calf. It's something else. Decaf. I had to go research what that meant, and that meant they run it through some kind of insane chemical process. Okay, it's not like it comes. It's not like they add the caffeine. The other one, they have to like do some unnatural, artificial process to get the caffeine out. So I was drinking decaf coffee at some point years ago, and that was making me sick. I would like every few weeks I would get like violently ill for a night, and I'm like, what the hell was this? And then one day, by the way, just out of a random one where Judith was like, Neil, I said to her, I'm thinking of stopping coffee. She goes, Neil, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't do any other drugs, you've got like no vices. Stick with the coffee. You got to have something that you do. You know what I mean? You don't smoke cigars. All right. So I was like, you know what? I'll stick with the coffee. And at that moment, I stopped drinking decaf. I'm like, all right, I'm going to drink coffee. I'm going for it. I never had that sickness again.
Yeah.
And attributed it to the decaffeination process.
Right. And there's different processes, right? So now they have a cold. There was a bunch of articles around. Apparently, there's a certain process that's okay. Other processes use more chemicals. I've looked into it a little bit. Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is good or bad, but I'm at the point where I can't go more than a couple hours without coffee or tea. So I start the day with coffee. I'm in my second, third cup of coffee. And then I say to myself, hey, that's a little too much coffee. So then later in the day, I'm going like, all right, I'm doing tea. I'll take the tea right through the late in the evening. Then I get a few hours of sleep and I get up to get my next coffee. So I think I took the concept of a vice, to heart, and I really embedded that. But look, I love the conversations we've had over the years. I think there's some great businesses in these areas. I've been following this tea company out of kind of upstate New York, and it's like a boutique company, and they make these really great flavors, and they have like a really high-end tea tasting shop down in Soho, and that one is pretty good. However, I always think about that makes me think of the tea tasting thing at what was it, Tea Havana or something, that chain that was around that Starbucks bought, and then they canned it. No pun intended. No pun intended. But the problem there was you walk in, there's a wall of teas. They have like 200 types of teas, all like lined up on shelves. They got to get one of those ladders out, like you're in Home Depot, to climb up. You're like, I'll take the Sumatran black from whatever, and then the person's got to take the ladder over there, climb up the thing, get the thing. And the problem for me, I think you shared this thing, is who knows, who cares? You go like give me 4 or 5 choices, a couple of sizes, that's enough choice. You go to Starbucks, some people are sitting there trying to figure out, like,
Right.
what the hell to order. You get stuck behind the wrong person at Starbucks. It could be a 10-minute ordeal while they think about what syrups to pump in and how many types of flavors and what kind of milk and how much is the milk foamed. Is do you want? Then at the end of that, they want, oh, you want this hot? Oh, I just thought this was a cold drink. You got that hot? No. And then you start again with the whole thing. But the tea place was I found that was difficult. I think that might have been one of the reasons they failed. You can't give people,
Right.
hundreds of choices. So
Right. Right.
anyway,
Remind me, is there still a David's Tea like chain in New York? I mean, did you ever hear about that
I
brand,
have,
David?
but all the ones that I knew of are gone. I think maybe
Yeah,
that
one here too. And they prided themselves on so many choices. I mean, it was unbelievable.
not just that, but like it felt so unwelcoming. You'd walk in like, am I allowed to buy anything? Like, can I get a cup to go or no? I have to buy. Do I have to buy it by the pound? What are we doing here?
Right, right.
And
They didn't want you standing around.
it's intimidating. It was like going into a fancy wine shop. I go
yeah,
in,
no,
I'm
it felt,
intimidated. The
felt
guy's
under
like,
pressure. Under
I go to
pressure.
a wine shop and I'm thinking to myself, huh, red or white? I don't know today. What am I having? Like, do I want under $10 or $20 to $30? Like, what am I going to spend? How important is an event or whatever? And so that's some wine shops you go in and they're looking at you like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Let's see what he's gonna do. They don't spend any time.
He's
They're
not
like,
going over $45 a bottle
yeah,
anytime.
this guy's not gonna spend anything, so let's not bother. Let's not bother with him. And I felt that way with David's Teas. I go in there, I'm like, I don't know. Is this a museum? Can I touch anything? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on?
So here's the question. So you assume Starbucks is the most successful of all the stories in terms of business for coffee, but maybe it's not. Like, I mean, who else has been more successful, whether it's a tea, shelf product, and successful in the sense of, mass adoption very quickly. Like, remember that Honest Tea, that professor somewhere, and I don't know where he was, but he was involved with that Honest Tea. That brand took off. Snapple, I think, was a phenomena. Where does Starbucks stand? Is it in the pantheon of these incredible caffeine stories?
Yeah, well, I mean,
relative
it's got to
to
be.
other.
I mean, I can't help but think that Starbucks. It's a good question, but I think globally, like, I had this hilarious. I don't know if my mind would even go in this direction, but you go into a Starbucks anywhere in the world, and they basically feel the same, and it's a very welcoming feeling. I feel like I'm
True.
home, and I had this idea, like, what if they could, what if someday we could have like a portal? You go into one Starbucks, you can come out any other one.
That's good. Oh, there you
I'd
go.
love to go in
That's
here
good.
and come out in Bali, where I went to a great one in Seminyak.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah. I get that. I get that.
But no, I think your point is right. Look, I think Starbucks. I always wonder the volume of coffee beans that Starbucks is working with. That's got to be some epic flow of farming and harvesting and roasting and shipping, like packaging. It's got to be gigantic. I can't even imagine the scale of coffee. Like, how many acres of land do you think are used up just for Starbucks for growing and whatever? And I don't know that they always talk about, well, we always work with these boutique farmers in Colombia, wherever. Where I don't know where are the main coffee brands? I keep forgetting. There's
Right. Colombia.
Sumatran, which is in
Yeah, I guess
Indonesia.
Sumatra. I mean, well, let's think about that. A lot in Latin America, right?
Used to be Colombian,
Yep.
rich Colombia. There was a picture of a guy on some brand of coffee that my parents drank, and he was this Colombian guy from the farm, and it was all, I think on the side the guy was growing poppy and cocaine.
Yeah, no, I remember that guy, Don Enrique Postal, on his donkey.
Yeah.
Every evening going home. Right, exactly.
By the way, isn't there? There's a coffee chain in Canada. I think it's named after Don something.
No, but I mean, underlying the question is this. I mean, in terms of fast food or other mass consumer, categories, there's always multiple companies, and obviously there's multiple coffee companies. But why hasn't there been three Starbucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, competing sort of head to head for that space. That's what kind of makes it a little complicated, right? Like, I mean, at a global level, you know, there's the Burger King, Wendy's. I mean, I guess Wendy's is not global, but
Well,
you know,
McDonald's, McDonald's, I think, is selling as much coffee or more coffee than
that's,
Starbucks. But
that's a
what's
good point.
fascinating is it doesn't compete. I love that. Like, the people, when McDonald's announced they're going to put in cappuccino makers and they're going to make the
Right.
whole coffee thing, the Starbucks stock went down because everyone was like, oh, that there goes the competition. And I'm saying to myself, I can't picture the people that I see at Starbucks
It's interesting.
most often are not the same people that are frequently going to
It,
McDonald's.
right, right. It's a third space.
It's
There's
a
so
different
many
thing.
other reasons, right? So many
Yeah.
other reasons.
By the way, I mean, there's certainly some overlap, but what's
Right.
like if someone was going to write a business plan about creating a concept, and they said before Starbucks existed or any of those types of places, and they were like, "Hey, you're going to go into coffee," people would be like, "It's a commodity. It's
Right.
everywhere." It used to be 50 cents. You can get it at any corner diner, deli place. You make it at home. They make it. Every office has a like. If you and I were
Right.
analyzing it, we'd be like, "Ooh, what do we need this? There's no need for this product."
The number of substitutions, huge level of substitution risk, right?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
It's like available everywhere on the spot.
Right, right.
Cheap. It's the ultimate commodity. Anyone
You
can buy the
you
big.
are going to sell you are going to sell a new coffee
And not
because
just that,
they come to your store and they're going to spend money in your place. Why you? Why your
I love the
place?
story, right? And then by the way, they're like, first of
Oh,
all, instead of 50 cents, we're going to start off at $2, and then down the
right.
road it's going to be
Oh, it
4.50 for
gets
that same
better.
coffee, right? And then not just that, but we're going to open up stores all on the same block, four of them in the same row. And then on top of that, we're going to invite people to stay all day if they want, and after just spending
Right.
$2. And they inverted every retail mantra that ever existed, and it just makes me think
That's
most
incredible.
is most business concepts, you should just turn them on their head and be like, hey, I think that's a cool idea. I think I'm going to try the opposite.
Yeah, or ask the famous question: what business are you really in? And they
Yeah.
they were, anyways. There was much in a third place for people to congregate business and find it's like the popcorn. You sell, you find a good place to sell popcorn, basically. And in that, so it's sort of in that concept, right? Like I think it's a lot of validity to that. And do you think they knew that going in, Neil, from early on? It was a third place as much as it was about great coffee. I don't know how great the coffee is, though.
Yeah, who knows? I love their coffee. I mean, I think if the coffee
Think about it, like, could you imagine back, right? They had a business plan. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they grew organically. But I mean, at the same time, at some point when they went out to the market, they had to have a vision, a plan, and at that point, it was already taking off. So people didn't question the model. But you could see them trying to pitch this. If it was a sort of early stage company, people would be scratching their heads. What? Why would I invest in this?
well, hopefully part of the lesson is I'm sure they didn't have a full game plan. They just had, hey, what's in front of us, and
That's
then they
part of the
started
lesson.
going after it. But my
Great.
thing is, hey, I had that idea. I mean, I'm always proud to say that I knew that the cappuccinos and lattes and all that stuff, because when we were kids and we were going down to Little Italy and Greenwich Village in Manhattan, I was going also with my dad and other stuff and going into these old school cafes and
Right.
getting a cannoli and like a freaking latte or a cappuccino, and I'm like, these are so good. And I know, I guarantee you, I had a few conversations with my dad or whoever, and I'm like, these should be everywhere. These kind of places should be everywhere. I mean, I'm like, I felt bad. Like I get to go to Greenwich Village to the Peacock Cafe or whatever it was at the time. And what happens if you live in Columbus, Ohio? I guess you don't get that or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, I know. I think it's a great point. I think part of Starbucks' story is, and that name's a little. You would think it'd be like some other name, but
something Italian.
Yeah, something Italian. But again, they're trying to keep it neutral. Like they thought it through. Who knows? I don't think, as you said, people, you do what's in front of you, and they just move through the process. But it's sort of like just what you said. I think it was a third place. But also there was a huge element of, Starbucks is coming to your neighborhood. Oh, that's a little she. Remember in the 90s, it was like it was
even now, if a
No.
Starbucks, if you're opening like a new condo development or whatever, or an office, you want a Starbucks in there or nearby or right there. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
And you know what it is? What it is? It's basically it speaks to the fact that it's going to attract. It's not a place seen for your lunch or dinner, or healthy protein based breakfast where you go out as a trucker on
What do you
your.
mean? I sometimes eat 2-3 meals a day at a Starbucks. They got
Okay, maybe
lots
wrong.
of good food.
Maybe you see it as a place for like one of the key meals, but I think it's this idea that, it's so luxury that people can afford to go somewhere and sit down and have a coffee. That in the 70s, that just wasn't part of the equation. Like most of the food retail concepts were part of one of the three meals. And, it's like all this additional.
Yeah, but you say that, but you know what? There were other spots you could hang out, like those coffee shops. Okay, let's call it that, which
Mhm.
were like they had them inside the Woolworths, they had them at the Howard Johnson's, they had them. There was one called
Interesting.
yeah, Howard, was it Howard Johnson? There was
That's not clear.
yeah, you remember the brand name Chock full of nuts?
No, you've mentioned that one to me. Your
Oh
dad.
my God, that was a coffee shop.
That brand
And
is.
that brand, Chocolate Nuts, was a packaged brand of coffee. I bet you might even be able to find that today. I'm not sure.
I'm sure you might.
But you could sit there any hour of the day,
Really?
all the way till the middle. Think about some movies from the 70s where,
What do
two
I know?
two thugs or two detectives just go into some diner type of place at 11 p.m.
Right. Oh, the diner.
or
Diner.
4 in the afternoon.
Diner.
And they poured him a cup of black, crappy looking
Sure,
coffee.
sure.
You
Absolutely.
could just sit there and who knows,
Right.
like so I don't think
Well,
it was
but they always had food at those diners.
right, but you didn't have to order food. You could just get a coffee and talk.
No, absolutely. So right, but this idea of a place where people, I think, it's tied to the disposable income that started coming around. It just became a lifestyle. Maybe it was tied to a European line. There's a lot of elements that it's coffee is part of the story, not the entire story.
But we've always talked about this. There's nothing comparable on the tea side because, first of all, there isn't that big a distinction. You go to a Starbucks, you could get tea, you get plenty of teas, and if you opened a tea place, you'd probably want to have coffee too. So what's the distinction? You know what I mean? Like if you started off from a tea orientation and just added coffee, like I can't picture any place. Like where would you go to hang out in that same fashion and just have a tea, except for Starbucks? You go to the same place, right?
So really, I mean, at that point, they could be serving any number of beverages with hopefully with caffeine. It was a place on the commercial real estate map that needed to be filled, and they filled it. And like, to the same level that McDonald's rolled out. And I mean, didn't Dunkin' Donuts proceed? Dunkin' Donuts was around before before Starbucks, was it?
Yes, I assume. I don't know the history.
And I assume Dunkin' Donuts rolled out. There had to be sort of a donut model that was able to expand. Dunkin' Donuts became the largest donut model, I guess. And they expanded. But I think the interesting thing with coffee is that Starbucks created a new category. Dunkin' might have expanded in the 60s and 70s, but there was always donut shops in every little town, right? So, and by the way,
their real innovation
was
just that they had the one guy making the donuts. That was the main thing. Dunkin', it's the one guy hiding his mustache, and he was it. Without him, man, they'd be nowhere. In fact, I don't know where he is today, but their volume must be down.
Dunkin' Donuts is also an example of not really succeeding in many ways. I mean, where Starbucks essentially, if there was any town where a coffee place were to open up, yes, the bespoke coffee places, but Starbucks became the principal.
I actually used to like Dunkin' coffee. Like I remember back when I was in at Columbia, we would go to like a Dunkin' place. That was really good. That was before there were really Starbucks around. And Starbucks elevated everybody's game. I bet you right now, if you go into, and by the way, there were many other chains. Starbucks bought a lot of them out, and there are some still around. There's I think there's even a proliferation now of more small chains of from a couple to a couple dozen to a couple hundred, locations that are very good. They're a little bit different niche with different food, a little bit different style of coffee. Obviously, we know Pete's. Pete's is huge, but I think Pete's might have 600 stores or something. Like I don't know, but all the place anywhere you go now, you could probably get a pretty decent coffee at a bodega, just because Otherwise, they have to. You know what I mean? Like because everyone's getting pretty good quality stuff. But that goes back to my point.
Yeah.
How are we growing this many beans? Like, when I do, people should pay more attention to the coffee bean crop because it definitely has an effect on a
That's right.
huge swath of of at least for my economy.
No, I mean, imagine there was some unusual specimen of a bug that infiltrated all the crops for a year or two and decimated the crop. Where for a couple of years there was no coffee. I mean,
That sounds like a horror. Are you writing a horror movie script?
for some people.
That sounds like an apocalypse.
That'd be like the world might grind to a halt.
That would be very. I'm telling you, if you just eliminated coffee, that might be like a secret weapon that would like take down entire nations. They thought they had the nuclear thing. Guess what?
Well, there should be forget the food embargo. There should be a coffee embargo.
Yeah, imagine
not coffee. Whatever you do,
go around. Imagine you become like a multi-billionaire, whatever, in investing and in some business, oil and gas, whatever. You do something, you make billions. Then you go and corner the coffee market. You go start buying coffee plantations, coffee farms. You go buy up as huge portion of the coffee supply as you could find. I think that'd be a massively huge market power. That would be incredible.
Do you know how long coffee beans hold up, like in good storage, the right climate controls? Do you have any sense of that?
Some of the stuff I have in my freezer is measured in years. Take it out. I usually take it out just as like in case I need something
sort of for the fossil records.
Yes, for fossilization and whatever. No, how long does
archaeological digs?
You can tell by the taste how long it's been, how old it is.
That's a 92 vintage.
Like, does it get better? Maybe we come up with this idea where we kind of impose the concept that coffee ages, right? We've got the aged in the barrel, and you got
dry aged.
It's dried out, dry aged. Yeah, these beans are turned to dust. That's the best.
Cleopatra, this is the one. Yeah, no. That's a good question, though. Like, and then, you know where that leads to, and that is things like, when was the first coffee bean seeded? Sprouted. Like, what's the history of coffee in the context of what?
And by the way, there's all kinds. That raises a really fascinating one. You're right. And like, how did people start deciding? They're gonna run some water and boil this thing and get flavor out of it, whatever. I mean, there's that same famous coffee plantation I went to in Bali.
Mm-hmm.
They were telling us about a kind of coffee bean called a luwak coffee, which basically it gets eaten. Luwak is like some kind of a animal that eats these beans and then shits it out, and they pick the beans out of the shit. And that's
really?
what they make the coffee. I'm assuming there's a cleansing process in the middle, but I didn't ask. But people around me were tasting it, and they said it was very delicious. I'm like, yeah, I'll skip the luwak.
I'm not gonna. This could lead many ways, but yeah, I guess, and you assume tea came around way earlier in history than coffee, right?
Oh, do you think?
But that's an assumption.
Do you think? I don't know.
I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, how do we know that? And
exactly.
It just seems like like, look, there's probably just as much interesting history in large companies, whatever, doing stuff in the tea, in the tea realm.
The weird part about tea, I guess I know nothing about how the process of coffee works, but in terms of how it's picked, created. But with tea, you always have this idea there's always somebody having to pick the leaves off the tree, or maybe not. Maybe there's obviously scalable ways, but there's always these images of ladies with baskets, like, I don't know, in Bali, did they have like some hilltop area when you guys were there? Well, I guess you were having coffee, but I mean, did you do tea when you were in Asia? Did you go to any like tea farms?
I didn't go to any tea farms, but
Darjeeling is famous for.
Yeah, I did drink tea, in Hong Kong and
right,
and all that. But
that was warmed up Lipton tea.
Yeah, it was probably another version of Lipton, just in the Chinese Chinese letters, But no,
but it's well, I think it's. I mean, we don't know much of it, but I mean, there's got to be some great stories of how tea moved Europe early. You know,
Tea part of
when they
like the
discovered,
early traders. There was the fur
oh,
traders, the tea traders, you know, and I just like, I
birch,
don't know why tea just doesn't have the strength of coffee. My like even if you have a very strong black tea, it doesn't get to me. But maybe there are some, and I just am not. And maybe you gotta let them steep for a long time. Yeah, I guess there's some very strong teas. There are.
there
Yeah,
can be, yeah. Like I can get, like Trader Joe's has an incredible Irish tea. Oh my
Irish
God,
tea. Although I
not
know this one, there's a type of tea called Russian Caravan. I mean, it's like
yep.
like goulash, goulash in a tea bag. You know, so
And that leads also to like what other, okay, there's tea,
right.
there's
What
those
else is there?
coffee, energy drinks became the new category.
I think there's three categories: tea, coffee, Coca-Cola.
Oh
No,
shit.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I don't know.
No,
That's
I think
that's
you're
not a
right.
good.
I think you're right. No, I think
No,
that is the.
that's not the same kind of thing. But like, what is there anything else that's comparable
Well,
to?
no, you're right. There's four. There's four. There's the colas, the tea, coffees, and then there's this new category came up, I guess, last 20 years, which was the whole Red Bull phenomenon.
But aren't those? I don't even know what that exactly is. It's like so that's drinks with
I
like
don't know. What's
crap. It's just like additives or supplements in the drink. That's all.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's caffeine still. I mean, I'm not sure if it's if they all have caffeine. Some have some other blends, but I mean, I don't know what they're doing. Have you had any success at all with those in
I've
terms of?
never tried.
Yeah, I think I've maybe done one time on a long drive as an alternative idea to whatever I was drinking to stay awake. You know, and I don't even
That's a good
recall it.
point. You know what? I should consider that because I've definitely had a few occasions where I was driving and like you ever go through the routine where you're like cranking the window down, you got the AC
Yeah,
with the heat going on, you're screaming and yelling, you're hitting yourself in the
yeah,
head,
yeah.
going like,
Slapping yourself around,
yeah,
slapping.
slapping it around. You're going
Wait,
all the while that's happening. You should have pulled over a long time ago. Like that's if you're over there
that's right.
smacking your head around, that means you're not alert.
No, no, no,
that's really
absolutely,
not good. That's really not good.
absolutely.
So, um, anyway, look, I think there's a lot more to the tea subject, but maybe
No, it's a great subject. We love it.
I think we've brewed this topic to the
We've
to its
yeah.
maximum strength at the moment. I mean, we can come
Yeah.
back to like other parts, like
No, it's good. It's good. I like it. Let's nip it right there. It's good.
nip it in the tea leaf bud.
Yeah, nip the tea leaves.
So anyway, that's what I had for the surprise topic today.
Good. Well, you want to hear a twist? This entire time, Neil, I wasn't seeing you live.
Really?
No. I mean, of course, I was interacting with you. I was feeling like you were very
You still
present.
can't see me live now?
Not at this very second. Of course, it could have been. It couldn't be me because you see me live, and you told me last time it worked out fine. So I didn't want to change
okay.
it.
All right, no worries. Well, I see my video looks fine on my end.
It's great,
and your video.
It could be that it could be various reasons, but we'll learn. One of the factors could be that I'm on a phone. Maybe a factor or not, who knows? But as long as it comes out good, we don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Audio, video. I mean, if I don't see you, but it looks good that when it ultimately comes out, who cares? You know, let's keep it flexible.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we stop the?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Stop it, and then we'll like go off and have a 2-minute listen to it. So there's our episode on tea and coffee, randomness, and I'll call you back in a couple minutes. Let's check out the tape.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right.